I'd like to show you the controller of the autoclave. As you can see, it's conveniently mounted on the top surface of the autoclave and comprises a bright LCD screen on the left, and on the right you have the control buttons, which are membrane buttons which can be easily used and pressed even with gloves. But let's have a look at the screen on the left in particular. It's a very clear screen which also shows you a lot of detail both about the autoclave status, what program it's running, and how the cycle is progressing. So let's start with the top left-hand corner and work our way through. First of all, you'll see the user program number, in this case user program number 1. The autoclave comes preloaded with 10 programs, but if for some reason that's not enough, you can do your own programs up to 60 of them. Now, if program number 1 doesn't mean anything to you, it doesn't matter, because next it tells you in plain English what the program is. In this case, it's a liquid program for sterilizing various liquids in containers. To the right of that, you have the cycle counter. The cycle counter is a bit like an odometer and tells you how many cycles your autoclave has run. Also, this identifies each and every cycle that's been run in such a way that you can go back to it, recall it, look at the parameters, and either print them out or download them onto a USB stick, so that you have a continuous record of the cycles that you have run. To the right of that, you can see a fan logo. This fan icon shows that there is fan-assisted cooling available, and it has actually been turned on for this program. Fan-assisted cooling is important if you're looking at sterilizing liquids, because once you've sterilized a liquid, cooling it down does take a while, and this can actually decrease your cooling time by around 5%. When it's actually running, the icon is animated and those blades will be spinning. To the right of that, you have a printer logo. All our autoclaves come with a printer as standard. The printer can run whilst you're doing the cycle and will actually print out minute by minute temperature and the pressure, the chamber temperature, the load pressure, and also the load temperature. Next to that, you see a red flashing icon. That is showing the chamber, and it's flashing red because there's no water in it at the moment. And so, as a safety reminder, it also shows that if you do try to press the start button, nothing's going to happen at this stage, not until you put water in. To the right of that, you have the lid closed icon, showing that the lid is closed and secure. Next, in the middle section of the screen, you have what looks like a temperature or pressure curve by time that you'd be familiar with if you've seen various sterilization curves. The reason for this is because it's very easy and very intuitive to see which part of the cycle you're actually on. You'll notice there are actually words either side of the curve, and these will change depending on the cycle that you're running, because different cycles need different phases. So if we look at this liquid cycle, you'll see that there's standby flashing at the moment, so the autoclave is in standby mode. But of course it needs water. So the next thing would be for using these buttons here, to get the automatic water fill working. Once you've done that, the add water part will start flashing, and will do so until it's got enough water inside. It'll then, when you press the start button, go on to heat. At the heating stage, first of all, it gets up to boiling point at around 100 degrees centigrade, and at that point, the steam pushes out all the air. It's what's known as timed-free steaming, and at this point, all the steam replaces all the air, so you have a saturated steam enclosure, which is what you need for sterilization. Then when the vents close, you can build up the pressure like a pressure cooker, and you get to the sterilization stage, which on this program is set to 121 degrees centigrade. Once the sterilization time is over, on this occasion it's set at 20 minutes, you get to the exhaust stage. At this point, the vent opens behind the autoclave and the steam is expelled. That gets you down to atmospheric pressure, and then you can start cooling. And when you're cooling, then when you get to 80 degrees in this case, you can open the lid. Now, something that is very special about this autoclave is this last bit that you can see here, the exhaust level indicator. Most autoclaves at the end of the cycle, when they get to the exhaust part, will just open the vent. But if the steam goes out too quickly and the pressure drops too quickly, then there's a danger of the media or the agar or the liquid boiling over, because at a higher pressure it's a higher boiling point. So if you suddenly drop the pressure, then there's a chance of the liquid boiling over, and this could make a nasty mess in the bottom of the autoclave, which somebody has to clean up. Also, if it's expensive agar or media that you've got in there, it's an expensive mistake to make. But with the exhaust level, you can set the exhaust level on 5 different levels. From 1, which is a slow bleed, so that you're gently exhausting the autoclave, to a much faster rate, depending on how impatient you are. And so you can set the optimum vent level depending on what's most important. So that covers the central part of the autoclave screen. Next, we come down to these 3 parameters that you have here. You have the chamber temperature, and that is self-explanatory. It tells you the temperature within the chamber, so you can check that it has actually got to the temperature that you wanted at your sterilization time. You'll see that it's set to degrees centigrade. You can also set it to degrees Fahrenheit if you want. To the left, you see the load temperature. Now, the load temperature usually lags behind the autoclave temperature because it takes a while for the load to warm up. And if the load sense probe is turned on, by the way, load sense probes are again standard on this autoclave, then the whole cycle depends on the temperature of the load, not just of the chamber. And it's only when the load gets down to a safe temperature that you are able to open the lid. It doesn't look at the chamber temperature. Finally, on the right, you have the pressure gauge, which is set in bar, but you can also have it in pounds per square inch or in kilopascals. Again, you can change that easily using the controls here. You'll note that the pressure is around 0 bar or thereabouts. Now, this does not mean that you have a vacuum in the chamber, far from it. It means that you've got atmospheric pressure. This is what we call the gauge pressure. So it's the pressure over and above atmospheric. So at the moment, because it's just about 1, maybe slightly higher than 0 I mean, it means that you've got 1 atmosphere pressure. You've just got the same as we have out here. And so these are the 3 parameters you'll be looking at all the time, and this gives you a nice overview of how the program is running. So that's a quick potted description of what the autoclave controller does.